Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. Today we'd be talking about the different techniques that are required to clear IELTS examination. I'll be talking about all four modules and obviously a rough review about them. We'd be talking about it in detail. So now I will be focusing on the slide specifically. So, what is IELTS examination? IELTS examination, actually, it stands for International English Language Testing System. The IELTS is a standardized English language proficiency test for global migration and international education. If you want to study abroad for higher education or to migrate from one country to another where English is the native language, you have to enroll for this exam. The IELTS exam was established in 1989. This exam evaluates your English language proficiency if you are in a place where English is not the native language and want to study abroad or migrate to another country. Why enroll in IELTS exam? IELTS is not a compulsory test. If you want to study abroad and not appear for the IELTS exam, then it's okay. But there are a lot of good universities that require IELTS certificates for admission. Once you appear in the IELTS exam, you get IELTS certificate. This certificate has good value. Below are some reasons to enroll in this exam and prepare for the IELTS. It will help you to get admission into the best international universities. It evaluates your English proficiency skills. It is great for your career. It gives you confidence. And last but not the least, it is accepted worldwide. IELTS listening test tips and advice. Let's talk about what IELTS listening is. Well, there's no difference in the content, format, or level of difficulty and scoring between IELTS general training and academic examination. The IELTS test remains the same for both the versions. Test duration is 30 minutes. What is the IELTS listening test format? You'll have to listen to 4 recordings, that is conversations and monologues, and then answer the questions asked. The recordings are of native English speakers and a variety of accents are used. Remember, you can hear each recording only once. Recording 1. Now, here I'm talking about the first part of your IELTS. You listen to a dialogue placed in daily life and context. In the second part, you listen to a monologue about everyday life or social context. For instance, a talk on the condition of streets in an area. The third section will focus on conversation between more than two people placed in a training or educational context. For instance, a teacher discussing an assignment with students. And the fourth part, you listen to a monologue on any academic subject, for instance, a college lecture. Helpful tips for IELTS listening test. Before the recording begins for any section, do read all the questions carefully. This will help you follow the recordings and identify the answers easily. Once a section is complete, you can move ahead and read up the questions for the next section. At times, there'll be a list of options to make a pick from. It is not necessary that the answers will be in the order you hear them. They may or could also be listed alphabetically. Do note the word limits for each section. If an instruction says, write no more than 2 words, stick to it. If you write more than the specified limit, you may end up getting no marks for the attempted answer. Be attentive. Look out for the keywords or synonyms, words with same or nearly same meanings as another word from the question. This can help identify the answer. For instance, if you hear in the recording, she likes going to the gym and playing tennis, it could reflect on your answer sheet or your screen in computer delivered IELTS as she's an active person. In questions where you have to write down words spelled out in the recording, you need to be well aware of the English alphabets and how they are pronounced. For instance, the alphabet W is pronounced as W. Listen carefully for words indicating the stage of the recording you are listening to. For example, firstly, my next point, to sum up. These words help identify which question you have reached. While listening to a recording, you can keep crossing out the options that do not fit. It makes it easier to find the right option. If you have to mention dates in any answer, remember there are various correct ways to do so. That is April 24, 24th April and 24 April. All are correct. If you face trouble in answering any question, leave it and move on. Don't waste time on it and end up panicking. If you have time left in the end, come back to it later on. If you are taking IELTS on paper, you're given 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the listening booklet to your answer sheet once the last recording is over. It is best to wait till the recordings end to transfer the responses to the answer sheet and not in between sections, as you may end up missing some important information about the test's next section. Do note, you don't have an extra 10-minute transfer time in case of IELTS on computer, that is computer delivered IELTS. Now, on this slide, on your left hand side, you can see a specific sample of listening test. And on your right hand side, there's this horrible image which actually translates to answer sheet of listening. Unfortunately, it just turned out to be blur. You can roughly check that there are 20 questions each on both the sides. So there'll be boxes on which you have to, you have to mention your answers, your responses. And my main advice would be to write in capital letters so that it doesn't actually hinder comprehension. It helps the examiner understand your answer clearly. The different task types are multiple choice, matching times 2. That is, there are 2 different matching tasks. Plan, map, diagram, labeling. Form, note, table, flowchart, summary completion, sentence completion, and short answer questions. These tasks aren't difficult, but you can only listen to the recording once. To do well in this section, you must be prepared and have your thoughts organized. Now let's move on to reading. You'll need to read quickly and efficiently and manage your time. You'll be asked to read 3 different passages and respond to related questions in your IELTS reading test. The content of the reading test is different for IELTS academic and IELTS general training tests. The IELTS reading test is designed to assess a wide range of reading skills, including how well you read for the general sense of a passage, read for the main ideas, read for detail, understand inferences and implied meaning, recognize a writer's opinions, attitudes, and purpose, and follow the development of an argument. Let's see the format, timing, and other important information about academic reading. Format. There are three long texts which range from the descriptive and factual to the discursive and analytical. These are taken from books, journals, magazines, and newspapers. They have been selected for a non-specialist audience, but are appropriate for people entering university courses or seeking professional registration. Timing. 60 minutes including the transfer time. So, keep a check on that. You'll not be getting any extra time for transferring your answers here. So, you need to be very, very frugal in spending your time. Number of questions. There are 40 questions. So there are 40 questions each in both your listening as well as reading tests. Task types. Fill gaps in a passage of written text or in a table. Match headings to written text to diagrams or charts. Complete sentences. Give short answers to open questions. Answer multiple choice questions. I'm really sorry, I have just missed on to one to two types. The most important type is here, uh, which I want to actually mention, is true false not given. Okay, marks. Each correct answer receives 1 mark. That is 1 band. Scores out of 40 are converted to the IELTS 9-band scale. So if you have scored 1 mark, that doesn't equals to 1 band. Sorry, I just called 1 mark as 1 band. Scores are reported in whole and half bands. That means you can score a 6 or a 6.5. You can even score a 7, 7.5. If you have scored 30 mark in your academic reading, you will actually be rewarded with 7 band score. Let's move on to general training reading. The format. Extracts from books, magazines, newspapers, notices, advertisements, company handbooks, and guidelines are actually included. These are materials you are likely to encounter on a daily basis in an English-speaking environment. Timing. 60 minutes including the transfer time. Number of questions. Well, there are 40 questions. Task types. Fill gaps in a passage of written text or in a table. Match headings to written text to diagrams or charts. Complete sentences. Give short answers to open questions. Answer multiple choice questions. Here I would like to give you a star tip. Please remember, general training reading and academic training reading are completely different. What is the difference here? The first two passages are smaller, shorter I would say, as compared to the last passage, that is the third passage. And the context of it, as I have mentioned in the very first line here, they range from books, magazines, newspaper, etc. But the language here is tricky. The difficult vocabulary which is used in academic reading is not used here. But what is different here? In this specific reading type, you might have to change the form of the words. For example, if in the question the answer is expected to be communicating, you will not find the same form of the verb, right? In your passage, you will find communicate. Let's move. Marks. Each correct answer receives 1 mark. Scores out of 40 are converted to the IELTS 9-band scale. Scores are reported in whole and half bands. But the startup here. Let me tell you one thing. In general training reading, you are not awarded 7 band if you get 30 questions correct. There is a difference of, in an easier way, I would say 1 band. Yes, 1 whole band between academic and general training marking. You score a 6 if you do 30 questions correctly. I would just, in the description box, I would be adding the band score of academic, even reading and listening scores as well, and general reading scores as well, so that it'll be helpful for you to understand what the difference is. Let's move on to writing. The IELTS writing test is designed to assess a wide range of writing skills, including how well you write a response appropriately, organize ideas, use a range of vocabulary and grammar accurately. Let's talk about academic writing. Format. You have to write in a formal style in the IELTS academic writing test. In task 1, you'll be presented with a graph, table, chart or diagram. You'll be asked to describe, summarize or explain the information in your own words. This might involve describing and explaining data, describing the stages of a process or how something works, or describing an object or event. In task 2, you'll be asked to write an essay in response to a point of view, argument or problem. You should find the issues interesting and easy to understand. So in short, task 1 asks you to write a report writing. In task 2, you will be provided with a question on certain important topics. I'll be making a separate video on task 2 specifically. I have already made an introduction video on task 1. I'll be providing link in this video only, so that it will be helpful to find out. You should find the issues interesting and easy to understand. What does that mean? In task 2, you generally get certain interesting topics in academic module, and for academic writing, you need to practice on it. You can even take up my course for writing. I provide morning as well as evening sessions for writing, so that you can understand those topics, because there are subtopics also. Let's move on to timing. The IELTS writing test takes 60 minutes. Spend 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2. Now, this is not the case for all of the students. It's up to you. You'll need to manage your own time, so make sure you move on to task 2 after 20 minutes, because task 2 actually takes up more bands as compared to task 1. In task 1, you are given band as per the standards of IELTS examination. You are generally given 9 bands, right? In task 1, you are provided bands out of 3, and in task 2, you are provided bands out of 6. So you need to make an important decision over here. You are supposed to spend more time on task 2 as compared to task 1, because it's quite easier to write task 1 as compared to task 2. Let's move. Number of questions. There are 2 different questions or 2 tasks, that is obviously task 1 and task 2. Task types. Now 2 tasks are there, task 1 and task 2. you'll be asked to write at least 150 words for task 1 and at least 250 words for task 2. Remember, for your task 1, if you write 149 words, you will lose bands. And for task 2 also, if you write at least, even if just one word lesser than the specified mentioned word limit, you will again lose mark. So you need to keep a check on that. Marks. Your writing test will be marked by a certificated IELTS examiner. Task 2 is worth twice as much as task 1 in the IELTS writing test. Scores are reported in whole and half bands. That means you may score a 7 or even a 7.5. Let's move on to general training writing. Now, general training writing, actually, as per standards of IELTS examination, general training writing is a bit difficult than that of academic writing. We'll talk about it in detail in a different video. Let's just go through an overview of it. Format. The topics used in the IELTS general training writing test are of general interest. In task 1, you'll be presented with a situation and asked to write a letter requesting information or explaining the situation. You can write the letter in a personal, semi-formal or formal style. It's not like you will be getting 3 different letters. You'll be getting only one letter, and it would be either personal or semi-formal or formal style. In task 2, you'll be asked to write an essay in response to a point of view, argument or problem. You can use a fairly personal style here. Timing. The IELTS writing test takes 60 minutes. You have to spend 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2. You'll need to manage your own time, so make sure you move on to task 2 after 20 minutes. Now the same rule applies over here. Because task 2 actually is of more band score, you need to spend more time on task 2 as compared to task 1. We'll talk about it in detail in a different video. Number of questions. There are 2 questions or tasks. Task types. There are 2 tasks, task 1 and task 2. You'll be asked to write at least 150 words for task 1 and at least 250 words for task 2. And the same rule applies here. Marks. Your writing test will be marked by a certificated IELTS examiner. Task 2 is worth twice as much as task 1 in the IELTS writing test. Scores are reported in whole and half bands. Again, you can score an 8 and even an 8.5. Let's move towards IELTS speaking overview. Now this is our 4th module. The IELTS speaking test will take between 11 to 14 minutes. It consists of 3 sections. Part 1 is an informal interview question about yourself. There are different questions actually. Yourself, family, work, study or hobbies. Part 2, you'll be given a topic card with 3 points to talk about. You'll have 1 minute to prepare speaking points and 1 to 2 minutes to speak continuously, addressing all parts of the task. You'll be asked discussion questions relating to the topic from 2. Part 3. You have a longer discussion on the topic. The examiner will ask you further questions connected to the topic in part 2. Now the third part is called follow-up. The second part is called cue card and the first part is called the introduction. I always believe your introduction is actually a reflection of your knowledge. as we have always heard about it, your first impression is the last impression. So make sure you give a positive impression of yourself to the examiner. That means give detailed answers. In the IELTS speaking test, you'll be assessed on your oral fluency and response to the questions, your coherence, your vocabulary, and your grammar. The speaking test takes place with the examiner, which is different from other official English exams, such as the TOEIC or the TOEFL, for example. During the speaking test, you'll answer questions from a certified examiner and will have a guided conversation with them. Keep in mind that you are the one being evaluated. Therefore, you're going to be talking away more than the examiner, who's mainly there to listen to you. To get a good score at the speaking test, you need to acquire automatic language skills. In addition, you'll earn points for your accent and pronunciation. So what do I mean about automatic language skills? Please understand it's not that difficult. You need to sound natural. You need to have a natural flow of speaking. That's required. If you're taking a lot of pauses, that actually shows that you are nervous. Now part 1. Test takers answer general questions about themselves and a range of familiar topics such as their home, family, work, studies, and interests. This part actually lasts for 4 to 5 minutes. Part 2 of IELTS speaking. This consists of speaking about a given topic. The examiner will give the candidate a task card. The card asks you to speak about a particular topic. Now, generally, it depends on the specific examination hall where you are sitting for your exam. It's generally a room. These days, in 2022, they generally give you a book where you are supposed to actually, they choose the examination, that card, cue card, and where on which you are supposed to talk. There are points that you should cover in your talk. You'll have 1 minute to prepare. Then you'll have to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. Don't speak for less time. You'll lose marks. The examiner will stop you after 2 minutes. Now, generally, most of the students think that I was about to speak for 2 minutes and the examiner stopped me. It's not like that. See, remember that you're not allowed to carry your, I would say, any specific gadget with you. For example, your wristwatch, right? So they are going to stop you after 2 minutes. And if it is not 2 minutes, they cannot stop you. Remember this. Please don't believe on hearsay or rumors. Part 3. This consists of a longer discussion related to topic part 2. This is the part where you get the share of your score. You need to go into depth and provide reasons, examples, and analysis. So please remember, you need to give detailed answers. IELTS speaking band score and marking criteria. Certified examiners assess your speaking. Your interview will be recorded and assessed later. The examiners who listen to your recording are given a rubric with the criteria for scoring on it. IELTS speaking band score ranges from 0 to 9 band. To improve your chances of as high a band score as possible, it is important to understand the speaking test format and the 4 criteria that decide your band score. Let's talk about them in general. First of all is pronunciation. You can pronounce words and express your ideas with appropriate stress, intonation, and rhythm. So it is not okay to be very fast when you're speaking. And if you are understandable, the examiner will definitely give you a better score than a person who is actually trying to run in his pace or with his pace. The second one is lexical resource. You use words appropriate for a given topic and can communicate clearly even when you forget a specific word or phrase. So basically, you have to use topic vocabulary here. If you are talking about a person, talk about the qualities of him. I have made a specific video on speaking, those strategies that you need to follow. I will be giving a link in the description box so that you can go and check it out. Grammatical range and accuracy. You can form sentences with multiple parts, that is clauses, using correct pronouns and verb tenses. I'll be specifically talking about clauses in a different video. Next one is fluency and coherence. You can speak comfortably without long pauses or confusing links between ideas and be understood easily. See, I always stress on this understanding part. I always tell my students that you need to be understandable. You need to be understood by the examiner. It is important, really important. So make sure you follow these specific tips carefully. Thank you so much for watching. Hope it helps. You can follow me on different handles and please do comment down below if you have any suggestions, and do tell me if this specific video helped you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.